Welcome to New Possibilities. I speak truth to power without fear. So I'm sure that most of you are familiar with Breonna Taylor. Back in March of 2020, police conducted a no-knock warrant at her residence. They ended up shooting and killing the sister. She was unarmed at the time, and none of the officers were held accountable in terms of criminal charges. Now, some of the officers were fired, but that was about it. And ever since that incident, you've had people protesting. You actually had the attorneys in the case that represent the family reach a settlement with the police and the city, a $12 million settlement, and some reforms were implemented as a part of that settlement. But there had been no justice for Breonna Taylor in terms of these officers being held accountable for their actions. But yesterday, the Justice Department announced that they were charging 4 past and current officers in connection with the death of Breonna Taylor. And this is a major development. These officers have been charged with civil rights violations. They've been charged with unlawful conspiracies and unconstitutional use of force. In this situation, you had these officers put together a false affidavit in order to get a warrant issued to conduct the search of the residence. So that was one thing that happened. Also, they created a cover-up of the fact that they relied on false information to prepare this affidavit for the warrant. In addition to that, one of these officers blindly fired into Breonna Taylor's home. Like, there was a curtain over the window, and this officer proceeded to shoot through that curtain, even though he couldn't even see any targets, jeopardizing lives, being completely reckless in this situation. So these officers face these various charges. And, one of the things that they talk about in this CNN article that I read is that, after the shooting, some of these officers met in a garage and they plotted on how to cover up their wrongdoing. So these charges have been filed. This is a major development. This is a step toward justice. And there's several things that I want to say about this. First of all, this is a prime example of how important elections actually are. I mean, unfortunately, you have these charlatans here on YouTube and elsewhere basically talking about how elections don't matter and we need to withhold our vote and all this other ridiculous nonsense. But it is through the vote that we are able to, elect a president that is in a position to nominate and appoint the Attorney General who is responsible for enforcing civil rights in this country, who is responsible for ensuring that we have justice when it comes to hate crimes, when it comes to issues of police misconduct. The president has the power to appoint that person. The president has the power to appoint the Assistant Attorney General in charge of the Civil Rights Division of the Justice Department. And Biden appointed 2 strong people for those 2 positions. He appointed Christian Clark to the Assistant General Counsel position over the Civil Rights Division. And it's because of that appointment that you have decisions made like this that affect our civil rights, that protect our civil rights. So even though this is just a first step, it is commendable that you have a Justice Department that is willing to take this kind of bold and necessary action. So, this is a positive development. Christian Clark is a civil rights veteran. All of her career has been dedicated to advancing civil rights. She started off in the Justice Department as a part of the honors program. She worked for many years in the NAACP, LDF, organization, defending voting rights and other very important civil rights. After that, she was the head of the New York Attorney General. She was one of the heads in the New York Attorney General's office. And after that, she headed the Lawyers Committee, a major civil rights legal firm. So this woman has a track record of advancing civil rights. And it is commendable that Joe Biden would appoint such a woman. And this is why elections matter. When you compare that to the track record of the Trump White House, they were trying to roll back civil rights. They had appointed Jeff Sessions as the Attorney General, and he was talking about getting rid of a lot of these consent decrees that were designed to address the problems of police brutality and racial profiling. So these elections matter. And then when you look at the state level, you had this old Uncle Ruckus Attorney General on the state level, Daniel Cameron, who didn't have the balls to bring charges against these officers. This man defended the officers, said their actions were justified. So again, this is why elections matter. We need to not only vote on the federal level for president, we need to vote in these local elections for the Attorney General, for your local DA, for your mayors and your state representatives. All of these elections matter. So that is a lesson that can be learned from this. Another lesson that can be learned from this whole situation is the importance of protests. Protests matter. You have all these people, these do-nothing, hustling personalities that you see on YouTube and other social media telling you that marching doesn't work and marching is ineffective and demonstrating is not effective. The only thing a lot of these people do is promote their own pet projects to pump up their pockets, to get money. But when it comes to being engaged in the struggle, you can't find them. You can't find them organizing any demonstrations or any protests or any marches or any boycotts or any of that stuff. All you find them doing is talking and stacking up their paper off of your gullible attitude. They exploit the black community, unfortunately. But yeah, so this is why these elections matter. This is why protests matter. It was protests that brought attention to this issue. People like Tamika Mallory and her organization led a relentless protest in Louisville demanding justice for the sister Breonna Taylor. You had others all around the country demanding justice for this sister, using their voices on social media, marching in the streets, demonstrating in order to bring attention to this issue. So this, again, is a prime example of why protests matter. And we need to be involved and engaged in the movements in our communities. We need to join movements fighting against police brutality and other forms of racism. It's not enough to sit at home and complain. It is not enough to just do a YouTube video like this, which is important for conveying information and motivating people. But we have to get involved in the struggle. We can't afford to sit on the sidelines while these police brutalize us. We can't afford to sit on the sidelines while our people face various forms of institutionalized racism. We have to get involved and we have to get engaged. Whether we're financially supporting the groups doing the work or we are foot soldiers in that struggle, we need to be a part of that struggle. And that's one of the things that the brother Kwame Ture constantly talked about, the need for organization. We have to organize and we need to be a part of organizations. That's one of the first steps. So this is very important. And another thing about this particular situation, it just shows you the level of corruption among some of these police, many of these police. You know, here you have police lying about an affidavit, you know, lying about the facts around an affidavit in order to get a warrant to violate this woman's Fourth Amendment rights, her right to be free from unreasonable searches and seizures. They just cooked up this information, just made up some stuff. And then after that, they created a cover story and a bogus investigation letter. That's what these officers did. And unfortunately, this is not some kind of anomaly. This is not some rarity. This is a systemic problem that we see all around the country. We saw it here in Baltimore with the gun trace task force, where you had so much corruption, where you had officers lying, officers stealing, officers robbing people, committing all kinds of crimes. So I never give the police the benefit of the doubt. I always say that a full and thorough investigation needs to be conducted. You have all these situations around the country. So I'm glad that, you know, we are stepping towards justice in this case. I'm glad that we have, you know, someone in office that had the sense to appoint the right people in the Justice Department. Because we know that if this was the Trump administration, there wouldn't be any federal charges against these officers who were responsible for the killing of Breonna Taylor. So with that, tell me what you think about this development. You know, I'm glad to see that, you know, there's some step towards justice. I mean, it took way too long, but at least there's a step toward it. And I hope that these officers are punished to the full extent of the law. So please rate, comment, subscribe, like the video, share the video, and hit that notification bell so that you will know when I post new content on here. I want to encourage you all to like my book club on Facebook, New Possibilities Book Club. And when I get a chance, I will post a link to that book club in the description box of this video. Also, I will post a link to the article that I relied upon for this video. So with that, peace and blessings. Have a great day.